just here. Wells looking to nail the door here. Petrie gets a look. Inside out, right for Guyana. Boy, the last celebration was good. North up by 11 points. North Melbourne are through. The Bombers are out.
It was electrifying, one of the great finals victories for North Melbourne, and their chairman, James Brayshaw, joins us. Welcome to you, James.
Hey, Jared. Hey, boys.
First and foremost, what were you thinking at half-time? Because I think most of us thought you were dead and buried and the repercussions were going to be savage.
Yeah, I was sitting up in the City End second tier with the other either injured or reserves players.
Oxygen would have been short.
And I must admit, I started casting my mind back to 2 years before when we'd embarrassed ourselves in Perth, and I just thought, you know, we've done so much since then, and the players have worked so hard, and I just hoped that wasn't going to happen again. And then I thought about a couple of the games earlier in the year when we came back from big deficits, and I thought, well, we're not out of it. But I must admit, when Ats ran in and missed early in the third quarter, and then Chappie kicked one at the other end. Geez, we've had our problems with Chappie, by the way. I thought, geez, this might be a long enough.
Do you contemplate going to the rooms in those sort of circumstances,
No.
or do you happy to stay where you are?
Yep.
So you resist the temptation to go there and say something?
No, I've never been in the rooms during the game. I don't think there's any place for that. Is my own view. I think that
if you had gone into the rooms, what would you have been thinking of saying?
Yeah, well, exactly.
But from day one, you've shown unwavering confidence in Brad Scott.
Yep.
Extended his contract last year. It must have been almost a relieved feeling. We saw the emotion on Brad's face when the final siren went in the coach's box. You must have been thrilled for him.
I was delighted for him. An enormous box ticked for him, I think, but for us as a club too. I mean, Chief, you know this better than anyone with your former role. The whole club signs off on footy strategies a long, long way out and work really hard to bring players through, and you know, the recruiters and the list managers build a list, and so for that to culminate in a really strong performance in a final is very gratifying for everyone at the club, but mostly Brad, because he cops most of the criticism.
And just talking about that list that you're talking about needs to be built, what do the Kangaroos need now to go from a top six side to break into that top four?
Well, it's interesting that Ben Brown played as well as he did, because I think most of us look at Drewy and say he's been unbelievably good, but he's got, you know, 2 seasons left, depending on how his body holds up. And big power forwards are almost impossible to find, especially the better you play. Because obviously the better you play, the lower you look at the draft, and the real good ones are in the top 4 or 5 picks, and we haven't had too much of a look at those. So, you know, a power forward is really important. So Ben Brown has been an amazing story, and couldn't be happier for him, a ripper kid. So that's good, but probably, you know, that key forward presence is really important.
And how much do you get involved in recruiting? I mean, does Mitch Clark and Jared Waite, I know he's on the radar. You've been involved in recruiting before. I know you were instrumental in the Nick Del Santo recruiting. So what does your role become now?
Consulted more than anything else. Every now and then, you know, if it's a controversial one, the footy department staff will come and go, what are your thoughts on him, or what do you think should happen here? But, you know, they do all the work, and so they should.
Does the emergence of Brown alter your thinking on Waite? Because Petrie's got another couple, Waite's got a couple. You've got Black, who didn't have a great game, but he's the future. So it's going to be perhaps an interesting decision for you.
Yeah, well, again, Jared, these are decisions that we, you know, leave to the footy department and the list managers. They've been pretty good over the last 6 or 7 years, in my opinion. So, you know, I leave that for them.
Jimmy, you're a Perth boy, the son of the famous Ian Brayshaw.
Yeah.
What's the origin of your love for North Melbourne?
Well, growing up in the West, obviously all the superstars, you know, when I was sort of 9, 10, 11, when you start picking your club, all the superstars were from the West pretty much. You know, you had Cabes firstly, and then, you know, the Cracker brothers and Roscoe, and, you know, Phil Kelly, whose son's now doing a great job playing. Graham Melrose, you know, there was this just unbelievable list of West Australian stars who came in. They pretty much all seemed to play for North. And also, when I turned 10 in 1977, we won the grand final. It was the first time I'd ever seen colour television. So I saw this unbelievable green grass, and I saw this, you know, vibrant blue and white. And unfortunately for Ed, the black and white of Collingwood I'd seen for the previous 8 years on television. So it was just fate that, you know, North was the side. I've loved them ever since.
Now, the presidency's been a labour of love for you, and there's been a lot of pain along the way.
Yep.
You've had a running battle with Caroline Wilson over the years. You've got 2 years left. Do you then have to step aside, or
Yep.
do you plan to stay?
No, step aside. The constitution is that you get 3 terms and that's it. And I don't mind that, to be honest. I think in the end of 2016, it'll be time for new ideas and new, vibrancy and I welcome that.
Is there an heir apparent? Ben Buckley's on your board, isn't he? And Ben Buckley's...
Yeah, well, selfishly, I think Ben would be a phenomenal president of our club. Not sure if he wants to do it. He's got a couple of years probably to have a look, but and you guys might have a bit of a say in that too, because he's got a high position at Fox Television. But I think he ticks every box. He's former player of the club, great administrator, and has a great corporate understanding too. So
one of the disappointments of last week, I think, was the debacle surrounding the jumper situation. In the finish, we had 2 clubs wearing their non-preferred jumper.
Yep.
You've got the Kangas and the Cats. You've played each other a number of times in your home strips. Have you been told what's going to happen this time round?
Actually, Mike just said to me before that we're going to play in the darker blue with the white stripes, blue and blue, which we don't mind playing in at all. The 2 jumpers we now wear are absolutely fine by us, that one there. Mm-hmm. So we got no issue with wearing that ever. And I think the Cats finished higher than we did on the ladder, so they're entitled to wear the strip they want to wear. If the roles were reversed, we would too.
Jim, I know Mike's keen to talk to you about Tasmania and what's happening down there, but the Etihad deal, in your opinion, what does the AFL need to do to make Etihad more palatable to the clubs that call it home?
Buy it.
If that doesn't happen?
Well, I don't think there's much they can do. There's a contract in place and there's still not a lot that can be done within that contract as I understand it.
So if they buy it, how does that help North Melbourne? Because
Well,
you're still going to pay $8 for a beer and $10 for a pie.
Well, hopefully, Jared, what they do is they'd hand it over as a quasi-clean stadium. I mean, I know it wouldn't be totally clean like, say, Skilled is or Simmons is for Geelong, but, you'd have much more control over signage, you'd have much more control over the boxes, you'd have much more control over the things within a stadium you can make money out of.
You've built your membership, but your support base at the games hasn't really increased as much as I'm sure you'd like. Will that help?
If ticket pricing doesn't come down, probably not, because your membership is what it is and the ticket prices are what they are. I disagree with that a little bit. I think, I haven't seen the figures, but I think, certainly 40,000 members and we've found anyway that games that haven't drawn in the past have drawn better in the last 2 years. So I think it's getting there.
Okay.
It's still got a way to go though.
Jimmy, long term, what's the perfect balance between North Melbourne playing wherever it is in Melbourne and your presence in Hobart?
I think 3 is about right. I think, I don't know if any of you guys have been down to Bellerive or Blunston Arena, but it is a fantastic place to play footy. It's going to be even better with a new stand. We couldn't be happier with Hobart as a city. They've been so welcoming to us. So if we play 3 games there, I think it's the perfect fit. I think there's 4,500 members now in Tasmania. So it's been a great success. In fact, I would say, in my time, it's been the thing that's been the greatest success as far as growing and introducing new people to the North Melbourne family.
But you've only got 2 years. You're only committed for 2 down there, are you not?
Yeah.
Is that a worry? I mean, councils change or whoever makes the decision on those things.
Look, I think, Hawthorn have been a great example of this. The more successful you are, the harder it is to shift. So, I think it's been a great success. We've loved it. I think they've loved it. So, I'd expect in 2 years' time it'll be a rolling over.
James, Boomer Harvey, April the 2nd, 2011. He was very open, very honest in his assessment of some young players after a loss. This is what he had to say.
I think it's more our young guys not towing the line. The guys that are in between 20, 21 to 25 or 26 years old, these type of guys, Sam Wright, Lockie Hansen, when are they going to step up? They either won't be playing in the team or because the senior guys will go to the coach and tell them that we don't want them in the team.
Ironic, Sam Wright probably had his best game for North Melbourne on the weekend. Unfortunately, Lockie Hansen wasn't there. But was he more right than he was wrong? Because he got whacked for that, and ironically, he wasn't there on the weekend. He'll be back this week.
Oh, look, we would prefer players not to say things like that in public because, you want to keep things in-house. But, look, I think what Boom was meaning... not wanting to speak for him, is unless this group of players develop quickly, we're not going to go anywhere because we know how good a player Brent is and we know how good a player Drew is and what you're going to get from Spud Frito and all of the senior players who have been amazing, by the way. So I think what he meant was these young guys have got to rise for us to go beyond where we are now. And I think on the weekend we saw, I agree, Sam Wright was wonderful, and I think Brad Scott's got to take enormous credit there because his work with Sam Wright has been extraordinary. So I was really pleased to see Sam play as well as he did. But Ben Cunnington, I remember before you took this job, Chief, the Aruzi was pretty scathing on Cunners and probably had every right to be, because we had to get 50 games into him, and he was sent into the coalface against much bigger and stronger midfielders, and he had to do his time, Ben, but geez, he was fantastic on the weekend.
Just before you leave us, you're running battle with Caroline Wilson. I mean, you're a chairman of an AFL club, obviously. She's the chief football writer for the Fairfax media. You don't talk, do you?
No, we're not overly fond of each other, but having said that, I don't think it's a battle. I mean, I think as we've got better, she's probably had less to pick us apart on. And, we don't spend any time speaking to each other, but I don't spend any time worrying about it either. You just got to get on with it. We think we're going in the right direction. We think we've got great staff and footballers and members and supporters, and the family's terrific, and we're delighted with where we are. So I focus more on improving that than worrying about relationships with other people.
Speaking of relationships, who are the players that keep giving up, Jim? Because we work a lot in radio together, and they're very happy to pot you when you're down the room stealing food or getting medical treatment when they should be. There's a few that have got your number, I think.
It's a disgrace. There should be a level of respect,
names.
Chief, for... Jamie McMillan, I know, is one. And what's worse is that you are the one who goes to them to get this information and then lag me with it, Chief.
Forthcoming, and Heath's been very good to us.
Yeah, well...
It was a fantastic win, really exciting, and great vindication of your role as the chairman. Good luck for next week. The role may continue. You may be top 4, and then you may be even higher. Mike's put a window glass ceiling on you already.
Well, I
I
know you've said a couple of times the man who saved. It's not one man. There's been a lot of people, an enormous amount of work, and we're really delighted that things are starting to go well.
Appreciate your time tonight.
Good on you, Jared. Thanks, boys.
James Brayshaw, the man who saved North Melbourne. We'll be back with more straight after this.
I love it. Well done, Jim.